Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Salt City Index Season 2, another episode where we have another influencer from Onondaga County or from the greater area of Syracuse, New York, in the area. And my name is Mooney, your host. And before I introduce my guest today, I would like to say that he's well known locally. He's an elected official. And when I first encountered him on a serious level, it was during a political event that was helping out with a younger group of individuals. And I said, "Who is this guy?" And went over and said hi and realized that this guy was the town supervisor. So with great honor and joy, I'd like to introduce Nick Paro. Say hi to everyone back home, Nick.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me on. I'm really looking forward to the conversation today.
Awesome. Well, there are some voters and constituents in your area that may not know who you are. So just give like a quick background, like your elevator pitch of like who you are, the office that you're running, and just say hi, introduce yourself.
Yeah. So obviously I'm Nick Paro. I am the town supervisor for the town of Salina, which is so rewarding for me because I actually grew up in the town of Salina. I went to Liverpool High School, so I'm from the Liverpool School District, and I grew up in the village of Liverpool, which is contained within the town of Salina. It's been, like I said, extremely rewarding. I ran for supervisor after I got my political science degree from Syracuse University, just because I wanted to see my community get better. I wanted to steer the future growth of Salina. I wanted to invest in certain places in the town where I feel like we could have seen improvement on. And I've been very fortunate to be in the position to make those decisions over the last couple of years.
Awesome. Great. And what's the office that you're running for now?
So now I'm running for New York State Senate. It obviously includes Salina, but it includes 6 other towns in Onondaga County, as well as a handful of towns. I think it's close to 12, 13 towns, I believe, up in Oswego County. It goes all the way up to the Great Lake, and it includes the city of Oswego as well.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, you mentioned that you were the town supervisor. You're actually 2 terms, if I'm not mistaken, already as a town supervisor. Did a stellar job, have really good local ties and investments and connections. If elected to state senate, what do you plan to do? Do you plan to replicate that, or what's your take as in from being locally to now to the larger platform?
Yeah, so there's two elements to that, I guess. At the local level, it really is about making the connections. It's really about constituent services. It's really about being responsive to your neighbors and the needs of your community and making sure that the town is making investments with their tax dollars, being good stewards of their tax dollars, so that way they're seeing the rewards of whatever that investment is. I've been able to do a good job doing that while building very strong personal connections with my neighbors, with my constituents. I plan on having that same type of relationship as a state senator. Already my door is open to folks. My phone is always available. I'm responding to needs, and I'm making sure that people know that I will be available to them when I'm a state senator. I want to make sure that I'm a steward for Central New York in state government, and I take that role very seriously. At the same time, at the state level, you have a little bit of a different responsibility as well. I call it an added responsibility because you're having conversations about broader policy. You're having conversations that affect the entire state, not just Central New York specifically. And again, that's kind of where my education is extremely important. I have the political science degree from Syracuse University. Mm-hmm. I also have a law degree from Syracuse University. Mm-hmm. And it's that education that I think I'll be able to bring to the state level, have very in-depth conversations with other policymakers, expressing a point of view that they may not have heard about before, and influencing policy that affects people on a broader range. So again, it is that very local, being constituent-minded, building those personal relationships with folks throughout the 50th Senate District, and making sure that dollars are being stewarded to the 50th Senate District so that way they're reaping the representation, while at the same time having a more nuanced conversation regarding policy in New York State so our state becomes healthier, more affordable, and more attractive for people to want to stay, live, learn, and have a family.
No, that's crucial. Look, if you're going to be someone who's going to be involved in legislation, having a law background, ideal. That's the ideal situation. It should help. It helps, and I would like to see more people running for that position, having those credentials, for sure. You've been accredited for ending the full value assessment, right? And then also lowering property taxes in your town of Salina. Some of our viewers back home may not really understand what that is or the impact it was on your town. And then with that being said, do you plan to have any similar goals or aspirations on the state level?
So the property, the assessments, the full value assessments on properties in towns is extremely complicated. And I honestly, we could have a full conversation over at a coffee shop or at a beer. If you have beer, drink beer, we could have that conversation because it's a very long one. I won't go too far into it. But ultimately, what we decided in our town was simple. We recognized that our assessments in our town affected the town tax rate, town property tax rate, but it also affected the school tax rate, school property taxes that paid school districts. And we had a school district, Liverpool and North Syracuse, that crossed town lines. So even though we were fully assessing in the town of Salina, our neighbors were not fully assessing, which provided inequities when it came to residents in Salina paying school taxes. So recognizing that they were paying more in school taxes to make up for the assessed values of our neighboring towns, I didn't feel like that was fair. And obviously, as a supervisor, my job is to advocate for my community, advocate for my constituents. And that's exactly what I did. I said, if full value is the right way to do things, then everybody should be at full value. But because they're not, I'm not going to bury my head and look the other way. I'm going to reduce the value. I'm not going to stay at full value. While we were able to do that, I was able to cut tax rates. And that was actually the tricky part. That's actually the most difficult part of the entire thing. Because if you're not at full value, your town is not going to have increased value for which you can then reduce the tax rate on, so that way your spending doesn't balloon. In this case, our value for the town remained pretty similar. So the levy, which funds the entire town, we had to be very frugal, very fiscally conservative with, so that way we could lower the tax rate. Fortunately, I was handed pretty good finances from the previous supervisors, and there were flexibility for us to be able to provide tax rate relief. In fact, every year that I've been the supervisor, we have not only cut the tax rate, but we have actually cut the total amount that people pay in town taxes for the last 3 years. Very proud of that. And I think the people in the town, they're appreciative of that as well. So assessments and tax rate, while they are a little bit different, they play together in some regards, but I wanted to save people from paying higher school rates in comparison to other towns, while at the same time lowering the tax rate that they were paying in Salina itself.
So like in simple, you saw a problem, solved it, and put money back in your constituents' pockets. That is
a simple response. Going back to what I said earlier about the two elements of public service. Yeah. I took care of my neighbors because they had a problem, and I built a personal relationship with them while having a much deeper policy discussion about how taxes are levied on our communities. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's amazing. It's amazing. Well, cool. A lot of concerns of people like in the area, in this electoral season is always around public safety. Your campaign's cornerstone has always been focusing on public safety, especially around like illegal smoke shops and around bail reform. So do you want to maybe just talk about that part of your platform or expand, or maybe for people that don't know about it, just want to give a little like snapshot as well? You don't have to go too deep.
Sure. Yeah. I became supervisor. Within a month, I was supervisor. We had businesses and neighbors over in the Lingcourt community of Salina, which is off of Teal Court Street and Teal Ave. They came and they said that they had their businesses being broken into, robbed. They had vehicles being stolen, and the neighborhood was being tormented by criminals. And obviously, these seemed to be rather young criminals or repeat criminals. They weren't murdering people, but they were doing very much nuisance crime that was causing problems and making the community less safe. Ultimately, they came to me with that. And the problem that I recognized was, as much money as we want the sheriffs or the city police or the state's troopers to have to solve this, they couldn't stop these criminals from doing this crime because they were being let go. They weren't being held in jail. The criminal policies that the Democrats have passed over the last few years, like bail reform, raise the age, are only allowing these criminals to continue to commit crimes. I, fortunately, similar to this video here, I was able to leverage media. I was able to have a press conference, and I called on the state to do something. It's interesting because actually that same year is when the Albany Democrats said that they made it a little bit, they repealed certain parts of bail reform. Now, I disagree with that. I think that was more of a political trick. But they did seem to address some of the concerns that people were having. So they heard me. They knew where the problem was. But in Salina, what I did have control over, because I can't affect bail reform policy yet. But when I get to Albany, I plan to be a strong voice against the bail reform policies and rolling back some of these criminal policies that have only harmed our community. But what I did in my town was I recognized certain businesses where are we having a lot of crime? We see a lot of smoke shops, corner stores. These are places that sell a lot of flavored vape pens, which, by the way, flavored vape pens are illegal in New York State, yet New York State doesn't enforce it very well. But they were selling these type of products. It's just, like I said, a classic smoke shop. They have signage with the blinking lights, etc. Those seem to be businesses that were attracting a lot of crime. Kids, primarily, were breaking into these stores, committing crimes because they had goods that they were trying to steal, and then they were robbing other stores nearby. So one of the things I did was, well, the town board and I did, was we put restrictions on where smoke shops could be located in the town of Salina. We put restrictions on how close one smoke shop could be to another smoke shop, or how close a smoke shop could be to a school, a playground, or a church, etc. And then we also limited the number of licenses. The town created a license to operate a smoke shop in the town. We limited the number of licenses that the town was allowed to give out. So that way we could only have 35 smoke shops in the town of Salina. Every time a smoke shop closes, the town amends the license to reduce it by one. So that way a new one can't pop up in place of the one that just closed. So we're slowly winnowing the number of smoke shops in the town, which also makes our communities a little bit more safer, because it did seem that those type of businesses were the ones that were attracting a lot of crime.
Okay. Right. Public safety is clearly top of mind, for you. Also, just interesting fact, does the town of Salina have a police department?
The town of Salina has never had its own police department. We are fortunate to be protected by the Onondaga County Sheriff's Department as well as the New York State Troopers, but Salina does not have its own police department, no.
Because there was like a mailer that went out that was saying quite the opposite, from your opposition. I'm not going to go into the name of the individual, but I was taking a step back because I was like, last I checked, never had a police department, so I'm not really sure what's good. Do you want to maybe address that issue?
Sure. I would love to. Yeah, obviously politics is, sometimes politics can get dirty. Politicians lie. We all know that. That's one of the reasons why I got involved, was because I was tired of the same old from politicians. And this is just a classic case. They're using something, manipulating something to try to create a problem where one doesn't exist. Essentially, my opponent did say that I quote unquote cut police funding in the town of Salina, which couldn't be further from the truth. Town of Salina, in fact, pays Onondaga County $60,000 every year for enhanced services. So we take the services that they provide us currently, which everybody in Onondaga County gets, but we actually pay an extra $60,000 to the sheriff's office for enhanced services to patrol streets when we're having problems, to make sure our parks stay safe. That funding has never been cut. It's maintained actually year over year. What we did do, though, was we had a school that closed. Nate Perry Elementary School closed. The Liverpool School District decommissioned it as a school and sold it. When they did that, the town no longer had to provide a crossing guard to that school because it wasn't a school anymore. So instead of me taxing my neighbors to pay for a position that no longer existed, instead of me taking their money for no reason, I decided that we were going to cut that crossing guard position because it was not needed for the school anymore. That is what my opponent is trying to say I did to reduce public safety, is me cutting a crossing guard position for a school that no longer exists. No, and I actually made sure to give tax dollars back to my neighbors because they didn't need to pay for something that no longer existed.
Nick, I got to say, this is kind of ridiculous.
I agree. I'm with you.
I know you can't say that, but I'll say it. That's really ridiculous. The fact that you've not only added to public safety, you've paid more money into public safety, and the only thing that happened was saving your constituents tax revenue by not having a position that's not needed.
Yep.
And now you're a bad guy because you don't support. I'm sorry. I just want to call that out. That's okay.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. And hopefully other people see that for what it is as well.
That's wild. Well, on a positive on a positive note, business development is also like a hot topic. There's a lot of talk about how Central New York is developing and there's industries coming in. Anything on your forefront that you like to see, once elected onto the state level?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Micron is coming here. There's going to be a tremendous amount of development and investment into our community because of that. I'm very much looking forward to that opportunity of being a steward, like I said at the beginning, being a steward for Central New York, making sure that I'm part of those conversations, an advocate for investment into this region, and making sure that the investment is actually going to be representative of what the people who currently live in Central New York want. We don't want a community that's going to transform where we live and not be representative of what we actually want. I want to make sure that we're able to steer those investment dollars into our community so that way the investment's going to be successful and our community can only thrive and grow. Very much looking forward to that. And you know what? And this is one of the reasons why I think a lot of people wanted me to run is on a smaller level in Salina, I've done this already. I took a community that wasn't being very much invested into, and I identified 4 specific commercial corridors: Old Liverpool Road, North Street, Brewerton Road in Mattydale, and Teal Ave in Linkport. And what I did was I advocated for investment into those commercial corridors, designated them as this is the business districts in our town, and how are we going to make sure that businesses can thrive while at the same time making sure that the community around it gets to enjoy that benefit. The community doesn't change, instead the community is going to be enhanced by this. If you look at Old Liverpool Road, the entire roadway is getting redone. It's taken a little bit longer, but I'm not the one paving the road, but the entire roadway is getting redone. They're putting a sidewalk along the entire length of it so we can connect to the village Liverpool. So that way people who live in Galeville will be able to walk from the street down to the sidewalk and go into the village Liverpool and enjoy that business district. Same time, businesses all along Old Liverpool Road received grant funds from when we had the pandemic, COVID. They gave out money to a lot of towns. What was the best way for us to do that? Enhance a commercial district so residents can enjoy it better. We did that. One of the plazas, Liverpool Plaza, just got a beautiful Ace Hardware store. It has been a vacant, the storefront had been vacant. A new Ace Hardware has gone in there. People are using it. A Direct Subs moved in the area. A physical therapy spot just got completely redone. An entire plaza just got redone, and businesses are moving into that. This is at Lemoyne Manor, actually, a vacant property. It used to be a very popular destination for weddings and other events. That has been torn down, and we're looking at 4 brand new apartment complexes or 4 apartment buildings with a restaurant going in there, beautiful overlooking the lake. And then further down Old Liverpool Road, there's the Willem Bomber Factory, another vacant piece of property that has seen millions of dollars in investment. We're looking at new apartments. There's going to be a park in there. There's a place where indoor soccer is played actually in the property, and there's going to be a restaurant in there as well. That's just one corridor. In Mattydale, you have the old Christmas tree shop, the Northern Lights Plaza. Christmas tree shop closed. It closed because that business was no longer working. We don't want a business in our community, an anchor business in our community that is failing. So they closed, and immediately we were able to get Northern Lights Plaza into the hands of a good local steward, Raymore and Flanagan. What is Raymore and Flanagan's plan? They are investing millions of dollars into this plaza because they are going to get national retailers to move into it. They are going to breathe new life in the plaza that I went to when I was a kid. We used to go to Media Play when I was a kid in there. They're about to breathe new life into this plaza in 2 years. I can guarantee you in 2 years, that plaza will be almost full, and we're going to have national retailers, and it's going to be thriving. And if you go down Brewerton Road, we've invested in a brand new community center. These are things that the community around in Mattydale will be able to, again, enjoy. It'll be representative of the community they want to live in. And lastly, I want to talk about one more of those plazas, because this is all proof of performance of what you'll expect from me when I get to Albany. In Linkport, Teal Ave. Next year, Onondaga County, the city of Syracuse, and Salina are all partnering together for an entire Teal Ave rejuvenation project, I'll call it. There'll be a sidewalk along the length of Teal Ave from Court to James. They're going to be burying power lines, going to improve parking, and they're going to improve the businesses in that stretch so the neighbors around it will be able to access that main road, be safer, and enjoy the amenities. Linkport Bakery being one of them, right? CJ's is another. So we're going to be able to enjoy our commercial districts because of this type of investment that I was able to encourage that wasn't occurring before I was supervisor. So I'm proud of what I was able to do in Salina. It was a little test. But I think that same type of advocacy is what you'll expect from me in the Senate. And I've already shown that I can deliver on it, and I can't wait to deliver on it for the rest of Central New York.
That is epic. I mean, it's in there's simplicity. Like, there's vacant buildings that used to have business opportunities, like just dead business storefronts that you've filled and got people to invest, and now they're becoming more popular. Proof's in the pudding. I mean, that's what I want. Like, no one wants like a blotted, derelict property, or when you drive through like the downtown or commercial and you're like, oh, it's all shady kind of feeling. You're bringing life back to it. And as a parent,
you want a thriving community.
Yeah, it's part of the community. And as a parent who has kids, sidewalks are key. I mean, like, it's so frustrating when I'm trying to push a stroller on the side of a highway because there's no sidewalk. And I'm just trying to go from like A to B, so that's just good. It's phenomenal. But I guess you're doing a stellar job as a politician, but I guess the burning question is, if you went to Syracuse for a law degree, like, why politics? You know, like, why the shift? I mean, you're doing great, you know, based on your record, but like,
Yeah.
what happened there?
Nothing happened. People like you have said the same thing to me. Nick, you're doing a good job. We want you to take we want you to take on greater responsibility. We want your voice to be part of the conversation at the state level. And that's really kind of how it works. You know, when I became supervisor in Salina, it was because I wanted to change that community. I wanted to change that community that I lived in, that I loved, that I cared about, right? And I was never going to run for higher office again unless people wanted me to, unless I had proven that I was capable of the responsibility that I had in the town of Salina. And people feel like I've, like you just said, people feel like I've done a good job, and they feel like I've proven that I am able to handle that responsibility, and they want to see what I'm able to do at the next level. And you know what? Public service runs in my blood. Most of the males in my family served in the military, various different branches of the military. And I feel that same pull for public service. I've told people all the time, I'm going to run and give back to my community and do the best I can until the people think that I've done enough. And then I'll be a lawyer. And that's a great plan B. But as of right now, I'm using the skills and the knowledge that I have to just help my neighbors out and help my community where I've grown up. And that's what's the most important thing to me. I'm blessed that I'm able to be in the position I'm in to do the things that I'm able to do right now. And I'm going to take advantage of it while the time is here.
Fantastic. What would be the biggest challenge, I guess, once elected into the state level, the balancing like your local needs versus the state? You know, but the ultimate goal is still Central New York. So I guess, like, how would you balance that, or how do you foresee that playing out?
Yeah, you know what? The likelihood is we're going to be in the minority. The Democrats have what's called a supermajority in the Senate currently. They have one seat, supermajority by one seat. We could destroy the supermajority if we win the 50th Senate district. I'm feeling very confident about that. And by doing so, I think it changes some of the landscape in Albany. I think there's going to be other conversations that may not be had right now that are going to be allowed to be had, because the certain wing of the Democrat Party is going to be a little bit more free to speak about public safety and about the migrant crisis and about tax policy and about the affordability in New York State. I think they're going to be able to have those conversations. But obviously, being in the minority has its own challenges. But you know what? I thrive. I thrive with being in a place where there is a large wall to climb, where there is a challenge in front of me. That is where I'm able to do the most work. That is when I'm able to accomplish the most, because I recognize that there is a challenge, and I like to try to figure out a way to get around it. And I've proven in my time as supervisor, I'm willing to work with anybody from any party as long as we're getting things done for Central New York, for the community, for Salina, etc. That's going to be the same mindset. I'm going to make sure that I'm pushing policies that are going to be helping Central New Yorkers. I'm going to be finding allies, regardless of what party they're in. I'm going to be finding allies to make sure that our voices, your voice, my neighbor's voice, our voices are heard and our priorities are taken care of. And there's a way to do that without being so partisan. There's a way to do that without being so necessarily political when the needs of your community come first. And that's what matters to me. So recognizing that there's going to be a challenge being in the minority, but also recognizing that there's going to be a great amount of opportunity for us to accomplish things and to work with people to get things accomplished is what I'm excited about as
well. Awesome. You brought up like immigration. It was a hot topic, and you definitely have dealt with hard choices and where everyone was looking at you for answers and leadership. So especially around the town of Salina, can you dive into like that unique situation that happened where you stepped in and made a good judgment call?
Sure. I was watching golf, rainy Saturday. I was watching golf, and I got a phone call on my cell phone from Mayor Adams. It was actually one of his top advisors, I think, that recently resigned, to tell you the truth. But I got a phone call, and they told me that they were sending migrants into the town of Salina, to a hotel in the town of Salina. I expressed to them that I was opposed to that. The town was not equipped to handle that type of influx. And at the same time, I told them that the county had a executive order stopping that. He told me good luck. He didn't care. He told me good luck. He didn't care. And that was the end of the conversation. Immediately was on the phone with my attorney. We had actually prepared for this. This is the interesting thing. A couple days prior to the phone call, I had internal conversations with my attorney about looking into ways to prevent migrants from being housed in our hotels on our zoning laws. And I actually had put out a public statement that said that we were closed to the migrant crisis at the time. And it was 2 days prior to getting the phone call. So it's interesting that I got the phone call 2 days later, but it's also, again, another opportunity that because we were prepared for it. We knew that if they were going to do this, this was going to be our legal argument. Got on the phone with the county executive that same Saturday. He was going to file a lawsuit. We were going to file a lawsuit. We were collaborating and being sure that we were on the same page. By Tuesday, both of our lawsuits were filed and the temporary restraining order was granted, stopping the migrants who were on the buses coming to our community. The hotel had kicked out people that were staying in it. And then it started to transform the hotel into essentially a shelter. And we saw packaged lunches and dinners. It said Tuesday's lunch, Tuesday's dinner, Wednesday's lunch, Wednesday's dinner, all labeled out. It was about 200 for each. They were prepared to essentially take this entire hotel over, transform it into something that our local laws, our zoning laws, weren't going to be permitted. So we were very fortunate to stop. Now, look, I'm going to also say one other thing. The migrant crisis is a creature of the federal government, and it is solely their responsibility to solve this. But New York State's not helping. New York State is enabling the crisis. They're not helping the asylum seekers, the migrants that are coming. They are, in fact, lying to them, dangling an apple in front of them, and then pulling it away when they get here, and then trying to blame it on other people. We are not taking care of human beings by giving them $2.4 billion, housing them in hotels, and then not allowing them any opportunity to provide. And guess what? Most of them are never going to get asylum. Over 90% of the asylum seekers are coming for reasons that they will not be granted asylum for anyways. This isn't like the refugees. We're a beautiful community and taking in refugees in here in Central New York. That's a tradition that we should be very proud of. But that's not what this situation is. These are not legal migrants that are coming here necessarily to work. They don't have work visas. These are folks who are being told that if they come to America, they're going to be able to stay in America and over a 7 or so year period, be able to live here until they will eventually get status. But guess what? That's not what's going to happen. You can't get asylum in the United States for economic reasons. You have to be coming from some type of country where it's war-torn or your life is at risk, etc. So this is a federal government problem. They need to solve it. They need to solve it immediately. What I've said is they need more asylum holding centers. So that way the asylum seekers being held in a federal holding center will have to be processed within 180 days. If they're not in an asylum holding center, they have more than 180 days to process their asylum request. That's why they're not being held at the border. And that's why they're being moved into the country. But we need to have more of them, and we need to be doing a better job processing the asylum claims so we can get rid of this problem. But $2.4 billion in this last budget, $4.3 billion over 2 years going to the migrants in New York City, and all we're doing is paying for cell phones, healthcare. We're paying the bill for their hotels, and they're also getting free debit cards, and they're just wandering the streets. They don't really have anywhere to go. It's causing a crisis in our community, and it's a problem that New York State has brought upon itself. We need to get out of this business immediately. And saying that we're going to pay for them now and then ask the government to reimburse us later, that in and of itself is not how you handle a problem. You don't do that because we'll never get reimbursed by the federal government. We're enabling the problem, and the federal government's getting left off the hook. We need to start putting pressure on the federal government to solve this, to help New York State, and we need to stop placating this problem.
No, it's definitely an issue, and so it's a good credit that you stepped in and was able to be prepared. I mean, that's the other thing too. It's like a lot of times you see people being reactive to a scenario. You were proactive, so that you weren't caught blindsided. That makes you different from most other individuals in a positive way.
My town attorney deserves just as much credit. He was fantastic. Him and I worked extremely well together throughout that entire thing. But yeah, it was important that we were prepared ahead of time. And we were prepared with the idea that maybe nothing was going to come of it. But it did. And it's very fortunate that we were ready for it.
Yeah. Look, and then yes, give credit where credit's due. Very humble, yes. But also having the right people around you is crucial as well. So having a good team is also part of it. So
absolutely.
At a very young age, you had a successful business. You started something out of like 21, like super young, right? And then not long after that, you transitioned to politics. So you do have an entrepreneurship, spirit. Do you want to likely talk about like that business or just like your general idea for the youth and just helping people become empowered for the next generation?
Yeah, I was a go-getter, I guess you could say. I really wanted to build something on my own. I wanted to stand on my own 2 feet. I got a job actually as a manager of a lids in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I was 20 years old when I got the manager position. which was rather interesting. And then shortly after that, some folks that were obviously much older than I saw potential in me and asked if I was interested in joining them to start a rent-to-own business in Pittsburgh. And we did that. I worked my butt off. I worked my butt off on everything I do. And it was extremely rewarding to be a manager and to be an investor and to recognize what it takes from taking an empty storefront and filling the storefront with product and having customers walk through a front door when not too long ago that front door actually had paper over it because we were remodeling the inside of it. Recognizing that type of growth was extremely interesting, rewarding. It was such a learning process for me. I remember I would be waking up at 4:00 in the morning and driving a box truck from Pittsburgh over to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to Youngstown, Ohio, pick up furniture, bring it back to the storefront, and then immediately turn around and start delivering furniture to customers in the area. It was that type of that has inspired me to work hard. If you want something, you should work your butt off for it. But at the same time, it was not where my heart was. It was something I went through that shaped me and my work ethic, and I'm very fortunate that I was able to have that experience. I'm very fortunate that, people were put in my life to help me along that way, so that way I could gain that experience. But my heart was always here in Central New York. When I came home, my mother was getting married to her longtime boyfriend, essentially the father figure of my life. I came home for the wedding, and I drove around the streets of Syracuse. I drove around Salina, and I saw kind of a community that needed somebody that was going to be there for them. That was going to have a vision for the future. And I said, I want to be part of that. I want to be part of the future. I want to be part of the conversation. I want to be there when the things happen. And that's what drove me back here. And it's been again, just as rewarding since I've come back to Central New York. It's just been rewarding to be there for it's been almost 13 years.
Mm-hmm. No, so it's a magical, beautiful place. It's nice. It's one of the weird places where you can actually have that small town feel, but still have a major city.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like that both ends. It's good for the environment too. Lakes and rivers and streams and
a lot of beautiful areas, lakes, streams. We got the mountains.
Mm-hmm.
There's just a lot of quality of life things in Central New York that I think a lot of people get to enjoy.
Well, if you get elected to the state level, you're going to have a wider net, bigger communities and other lakes and rivers to take care of, and
yes,
be on the goal. But I foresee you being very successful, in that role.
Thank you.
But is there anything that you feel like you want to address or talk about? Because sometimes, I'm not saying for your campaign, but it does happen here and there that things don't get the attention you would like to see it get.
Mm-hmm.
So on this platform, is there anything you want to put like a spotlight on?
You know what? I'm going to tell you this. Not only do I feel very confident with how my campaign's been run, I have such a great team. Talking about making sure you're surrounded by the right people. I have such a great team. I think we have done a great job getting the message out there, talking about the issues that we want to talk about. We've done polling on it. We know what the top issues are. The migrant crisis is issue number one. Crime is another issue, and affordability. And those are the three things we're talking. Our commercials have to deal with all of those problems. Our mailers talk about those problems. And then when I'm having conversations on the street, we're having those conversations as well. So I'm proud of how we've been able to get those problems out there and talk about the solutions. What I will say this is we have a website, nickparo.com, Paro, NICKPARO.com. Go to the website if you haven't had a chance, check it out. We do have a policy page on the website. It talks about my plan. It talks about Senate bills that I support. It talks about what the effects of certain Senate bills that I support, what it will have. It talks about specific policies with regards to energy, education, tax policy. Go there and you can learn a little bit more in depth than some of the broader issues that we talk about. I encourage people to do that. I think there's a lot more than just crime, migration, and affordability. I think the nuance underneath it, the policy discussions underneath it are just as important to recognize how I plan on fighting for Central New Yorkers when I get to Albany.
Well, you're accessible. You know what I mean? So you can go to his website. You could definitely take a look. You bring up very good, valid points. And, we're coming kind of like to the close and to the end of this particular episode.
Yeah.
Outside of that, is there anything else that you would love to talk about while we're still here on the show today?
If anybody wants to run for political office, I want you to first have a serious conversation with yourself and your family. And then remember one thing. It takes a tremendous amount of work, and you need to have it in your heart, and you need to actually care about your neighbors and your community, and you're willing to do that work before you get elected, during the campaign process. I'm about to get off this conversation with you, and I'm about to go knock on doors. And that is something I do almost every single day. And it is hard work, but those are the conversations that matter. And that's the type of thing that people need to know about before they run for office. It's not about just getting into office, but the work that it takes to actually win an election is not for those with fantastical ideas of glory. It's for those who actually just have a bleeding heart for their community.
Well, look, it's very noble of you. You put it out there and, let people know. And self-sacrifice is huge. It also just physically takes a lot out of you to go knocking on doors, and especially when it gets cold in this area. It's not fun. It's raining, it's cold, it's windy, but, you want to get out and meet people, and you hear some really great stories. Someone's like, hey, this politician came knocking on my door. I'm like, really? For what? Just wanted to say hi. I'm like, that doesn't... I mean, I lived in other places. I've never had a politician knock on my door. Just be like, I just want to say hi to you. I'm like, what did I do wrong? But on a good note, like, that's good. You're getting out there, you're meeting people, you definitely have a good track record and resume. And when I'm looking for an elected official, like, here it is, like, you're organized, you have a law degree, you have a stellar record from being already elected official by gaining people's trust and votes. You're proactive, not reactive. You help put money back in people's pockets. You're conscious of, like, our quality of life and public safety. So, I mean, look, it's unfortunate I can't vote for you. You know what I mean? Like, you're not in my immediate area, but
you live in the city. I get it.
You would.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Thank you.
I personally would. Well, like always, I definitely enjoyed having you on the show. Thank you for being an influencer in our area. I definitely mark you as an influencer, and grateful that you were on the show. And also want to give a big shout out to Momentous Media Group for officially sponsoring the second season of the Salt City Index. I'm your host, Mo Moodie. Nick, thanks for being on the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it as well. All right. Take care.
All righty. Thank you, everybody.